Chapter 6. Empty like a glass. The next day was just another day at the office. A giant came in and told me someone was trying to poison his dog. He suspected the lady next door. He wasn't happy when I told him I couldn't help, but at least he didn't hit me with my desk. A woman with a face like a sad story came in because she thought the girl she lived with was robbing her. She wanted me to come over and scare the girl. She left as disappointed as the giant. Then a man came in with the oldest story in the book, a young wife who had taken the money and run. He didn't want the money. He wanted his wife back. I could help him, and I did. It was easy enough. I didn't get rich on it, but why should I care? I was a man with a $5,000 piece of government paper in my pocket. 3 days later, Eileen Wade called to invite me over for drinks the next evening. Foolish curiosity made me say yes. Foolish curiosity also made me reread Terry Lennox's letter after I hung up. It reminded me that I hadn't had the gin and lime at Victor's he'd asked me to have. The bar was almost empty when I got there. Terry would have been pleased. I was surprised to hear the woman in front of me order the same drink. She wasn't English either. I might have found out more about her if I hadn't noticed I was being watched. I approached the man straight on. "You're watching me. If I sit here next to you, it'll make your job easier." "Sure, pal. Sit where you want." "You're one of Mendy's boys, right? A little guy with no name." He didn't like the conversation. "I got a name, and I'm not one of the boys. I'm his number one. More than you can say, Marlowe." "You're supposed to watch me." "Okay. Watch me leave." I paid for the drink and went out the door. The boy came out right behind me. There might have been trouble if this enormous man hadn't got out of an enormous car and picked the boy up with one huge hand. "I keep telling you, cheap gangsters, stay away from my favorite places. You spoil my appetite." The giant threw my watcher against the outer wall of the bar with the one arm that had been holding him, and Mendy's number one boy hit it hard and stayed there until the giant disappeared into Victor's. "What was that?" I asked as the boy found his feet.
"Big Willie Magoon, a policeman. He thinks he's tough."
"You mean he isn't sure?" I asked him politely. The boy ignored me and limped away into the Hollywood night. When I reached the Wade house the next afternoon, the party had already begun. I parked my old car between two new, expensive ones and walked in. A Mexican in a white coat opened the door for me, liked my name, and let me in. It was the same party everybody has. People were talking too loud and not listening at all. Everyone had a glass in his hand, and the glasses were all half empty. Eileen Wade came up and said she was very glad I could come. Her husband wanted to see me, she added. He hadn't joined the party because he hated parties. He was in his study, she said. The Mexican took me to see him. He also warned me that Senor Wade was very busy. Wade was busy lying on a sofa. There was a pile of yellow paper next to the typewriter on his desk. The Mexican left, and Wade sat up.
"Good of you to come, Marlowe. Did you have a drink or two?"
I said no and asked him how his work was going.
"Fine. It just comes out. That's how it is when it's good. If it's hard work, it's bad writing."
He said this almost angrily, so I was kind enough to disagree. It was hard for Flaubert, and his stuff's good.
"Oh, God, an intellectual detective. Well, I hate intellectuals. I'm not drinking, and I hate everyone. I hate you, too."
"I understand," I said. "You need somebody to insult. Go ahead. When it begins to hurt, I'll let you know." Wade laughed.
I hate myself, too, and my terrible books that sell and sell. So, how can you help me?
Maybe I don't want to help, I said.
Let's have a drink. Because I like you.
He was laughing again. Not in here, pal. Not you and me alone. I don't want to have to watch you take the first one.
You know, Marlowe, I think you could help. Why don't you come and live here and keep me safe from harm and tell me all about Flaubert?
I shook my head. I couldn't stop you.
Try it. I could finish the miserable book. I have to finish it. If I can't finish things I start, I might as well be dead.
I didn't want to listen to this kind of nonsense.
You did as much for Lennox,
he said suddenly. I walked right up to him and gave him a hard stare. I got Lennox killed. That's what I did for Terry. Wade said I was talking like a fool. He cursed at me, but without much feeling. I couldn't really help anyway, he said, telling me what I already knew. It was something personal, he said. About your wife?
I don't think so. I think it's about me. Forget it, though. Let's go out and have that drink and see all those nice people who do want to watch me have that first one.
The party was louder than before. Wade said hello here and there and then headed for the bar. As Candy, the Mexican, mixed our drinks, I saw a face I knew. It was the woman from Victor's, the one who had ordered the gin and lime. Wade gave her a real smile.
Hello, Linda. This is Philip Marlowe. Marlowe, this is Linda Loring. You have something in common.
If she recognized me from the night before, she didn't show it. She extended her hand.
Hello, Mr. Marlowe. What Roger won't say is that I'm Sylvia Lennox's sister, and I know who you are.
Her hand was cool, and she didn't let me keep it for long. As she took it back, a thin man with a neat beard and a very white face came up to us. He ignored me and gave Wade an ugly look. Linda Loring said,
My husband, Mr. Marlowe.
He didn't even look at me. He was giving all his poisonous attention to Wade.
I have something to say to you, Wade. Stay away from my wife.
Wade seemed amused.
You're my guest today, Dr. Loring, so all I'll say is that I think you've misunderstood something.
Loring found a glove in one of his pockets and slapped Wade across the face with it. The writer didn't move a muscle.
A very dramatic, Doctor. Next time, why don't you do it when I have a chance to answer the challenge? It would be more interesting. Right now, I think you're looking for the door. Candy will show it to you.
Wade turned back to the bar.
Candy, the doctor is leaving.
Loring grabbed for his wife's hand, but she was too quick.
I'm not leaving, she said. You are.
Loring raised the glove again, but Wade stepped between the husband and wife.
We don't do that here, Doctor.
Don't we?
Loring asked sarcastically, but he put the glove away and left. Candy shut the door behind him. I picked up my drink and looked around for Wade, but he had disappeared. No wonder he didn't like parties. I took a walk out to the terrace and settled into a soft chair facing the lake. A minute later, Eileen Wade was sitting next to me. She wanted to know if I had accepted Roger's offer to stay with them. I told her I hadn't. I said that if she wanted to help her husband, she should find him a good psychiatrist. She looked surprised.
A psychiatrist? Why?
I'm not an expert, but I think your husband does have a secret he has buried so deep inside himself that he can't find it. Maybe something he did when he was drunk. so he drinks to find it. Unless he just drinks because he can't write anymore. She frowned.
It's not that. Roger has a great amount of talent. His best book is still inside him.
Then maybe it's something between the two of you. She answered immediately.
No, I love my husband. Not the way a young girl loves, perhaps, but I do love him. A woman is only a young girl once. The man I loved then is dead. He died in the war. His initials, strangely enough, were the same as yours. They never even found his body. Sometimes I even think I see him at a party or in a restaurant. It's silly, I know, but we were very much in love. That crazy love that doesn't happen twice.
She wasn't looking at me anymore. She was staring at the lake. I looked back at the house, and Wade was there in the doorway. I joined him. He had had more than that first drink.
How's my wife, Marlowe? Did you give her another kiss?
I said I was leaving.
Go ahead. But I'll tell you what the doctor told me. Stay away from my wife, Marlowe, because it isn't any good. She's not there, see? Empty, like a glass. Did she tell you about her old love? The one that died in Norway, but they never found? Be careful, Marlowe. People do disappear.
I walked away from him. As I passed the bar, Candy called to me. Senor, one drink left. You want it? I told him to drink it, but he said he was a beer man. He said that's how the Spanish were. He said that he was very Spanish, and that he had the knife to prove it. He didn't need me to help him take care of his boss. You're doing such a good job, Candy. Who brought him home? I speak enough Spanish to know what he called me. He didn't hold the door for me when I left. Chapter 7. Pretty necklace around a pretty neck. For a week, the Wades left me alone. I did what I do for a living. Then I got a call on a Thursday night from Wade. His voice was bad. He was breathing hard.
I'm in terrible shape, Marlowe. I'm losing control. Can you come over quickly?
I said I would, and then the telephone went dead. I shouted into it, but there was no reply. I was in my car a minute later and drove like a bullet through the streets and up into the hills where they lived. I imagined Wade throwing his wife down the stairs. I imagined him beating on her locked door. I drove even faster. When I got there, Eileen Wade was standing in the open front door in a pretty dress, nice and cool, smoking a cigarette. If there was any excitement around her, I'd brought it with me. Where is he?
He had a fall,
she said calmly.
He cut his head on something. There was only a little blood.
Well, that's nice, I said. Where is he now? She looked at me quietly, and then she pointed out at the darkness towards the lake.
Out there somewhere. You find him. I've had enough.
And she went into the house. He was right where she had pointed, lying on his stomach. The back of his head was sticky. I talked to him, but he didn't answer. I tried to lift him, dropped him, tried again, and got him across my back. He was as heavy as stone. I made it into the house and dropped him on the sofa. My back screamed as I straightened up. Mrs. Wade came in and said she'd called her doctor. He hadn't wanted to come, she said. This confused me until she explained that Loring was her doctor. He showed up 15 minutes later, took a glance at Wade's cut, and said there was no danger. He put his hat back on and started to leave. "I can't get him upstairs alone, Doctor," I said.
"Then leave him where he is," Loring said coldly. "You might wash his head, too. He's not my patient."
"I'm not asking you to treat him, Doctor. I'm asking for some help in getting him to his bedroom," I said, beginning to get angry.
"And just who are you?"
he asked sharply. "My name's Marlowe. We were introduced last week. All I want is—" He interrupted me.
"I'm not interested in what you want."
He started for the door, but I stepped in front of it. "Just a minute. You're a doctor, and this man needs help. I can't get him upstairs alone. What do you say?"
"Get out of my way," he said through his teeth, "or I shall call the police. I'm a professional man, and as a professional—"
This time I interrupted him. "As a professional man, you're a sack of dirt." I stepped out of his way. He went out like a storm. Perhaps he hadn't brought his glove this time. Instead, his eyes smacked me as he went through the door. In the end, Candy came home, and we carried Wade up the stairs together. The Mexican wanted to know what I was doing there. I didn't like his curiosity, and told him so. He showed me his knife. Candy didn't like me. I couldn't understand why. I'm very easy to like. He asked me if I had hit Wade. I told him his boss had fallen, and that he wasn't hurt badly. The knife disappeared. We undressed Wade and put him to bed. Candy went to change. I washed the cut, and Wade opened his eyes.
"What happened?"
"I'd say the usual, except you also fell and cut your head this time. It's not serious. Why don't you get some sleep?"
"Sleep?"
he said.
"What's that?"
"Maybe a pill would help. Got any?" He said there was some in the drawer. They were Mrs. Wade's pills, and they were strong. Loring's name was on the plastic bottle. I gave Wade one, and he swallowed it dry. He was quiet for a while, and then he said slowly,
"I remember something. Do something for me. I wrote some crazy stuff. I don't want Eileen to see it. It's on the typewriter. Tear it up for me."
I said I would. Then I thought he had fallen asleep until he opened his eyes again and asked,
"Ever kill a man, Marlowe?"
"Yes."
"Nasty feeling, isn't it?"
"Some people like it," I said.
"How could they?"
he asked. And then he was asleep for real. I waited a minute, and then I turned out the light and left him. I went downstairs. Eileen wasn't there, so she must have been up in her room. I wondered about that. Didn't she want to know how her husband was? Or was she just too tired of the trouble he caused? Maybe she didn't love him as much as she said she did. About that I didn't know. No one can see into someone else's heart. Not even a good detective. I went to his study and found the papers. I began reading them. He was right. It was crazy stuff. He wrote about the moon watching him and wanting to scream, and Veringer. He wrote bad things about Veringer, but in a kind way. Then he said he was a rose, and talked about a woman who was sleeping in complete silence, and that was wrong, he wrote, because you always make one sound or another when you sleep. Then he said he had given Candy too much money. He ought to have killed him instead.
"A good man died for me once. Why not that insect in his stupid white jacket?"
Then he began to come out of whatever bad dream he was having, and he wrote that he had to call someone. He was in a bad way. And that was the end. That's where he stopped writing. I didn't tear the papers up. I folded them and put them in my pocket. I stood there looking out of the window at the calm, dark lake. Then I heard a shot. Her room was empty, so I kept running. She was in his room, and they were struggling. Before I could help her, she'd pulled the gun from his hands. She fell against me as she pulled the gun free, and I held her. She was crying.
Roger, how could you? I saw someone. He had a knife. I grabbed the gun from the drawer here.
He pointed to the little table where I'd found the pills.
And I shot. But it must have been a dream, because no one was there.
It was a miserable story from start to finish. The gun hadn't been in the drawer. I had seen the pills, some papers, a set of keys, but no gun. And she just wasn't strong enough to have taken the gun from him, unless he wasn't really fighting. It had all been a performance. He wanted sympathy, I guessed. Poor Roger is trying to kill himself, he wanted her to think. Go back to bed, I told her. He won't do it again. I took the gun. She gave me a hard look and then walked out. You were just playing, I told him when she'd left. You don't want to die.
I guess I don't,
he said. What good man died for you? I asked him. At first he didn't understand, and then he remembered.
I told you, it was crazy stuff. I was drunk.
And isn't Candy taking your money because he knows something he shouldn't? He closed his eyes and repeated,
It was just crazy stuff.
I closed the door and came back and sat on the bed and said, You can't keep running. Candy does know something. What is it? A woman? His eyes were still closed.
Maybe you believe that fool doctor.
I took a wild guess. Nah, he's wrong. It wasn't his wife. It was her sister Sylvia. Wade opened his eyes wide.
Is that why you're here?
He whispered, and I knew I'd guessed right.
You leave me alone, he said. I'm not the first husband to do what I did.
I didn't ask him just what he had done.
It's been hell,
he said. Well, that's obvious. The interesting point is why. I gave him another one of his wife's pills and watched him fall asleep again. When he was finally in dreamland, he looked half dead. He wasn't going to hurt anyone tonight. Maybe he had never hurt anyone at all. I went down the hall, but at the top of the stairs I stopped because Eileen was standing in the doorway of her room. He's gone back to sleep, I said.
I knew you would return,
she said softly. Her voice was changed.
Even after 10 years, I haven't stopped waiting.
Wonderful, I thought. Now she's crazy, too.
Come in and shut the door,
she whispered, and went into her room. I followed her in, because it seemed like a good idea. She threw herself into my arms.
It's always been you,
she said, and I knew she wasn't talking to me. I might have done the wrong thing, but Candy saved me. I heard his footsteps stop at the door, and I jumped and opened it, and he ran down the stairs. When I came back to the room, all I saw was a crazy woman talking to herself. I closed the door and went down to the study and found Wade's bottle and poured myself a big drink. Then I poured another. I lay down on the sofa there, and soon the bottle was empty, and I fell asleep too. I woke up with a head like a dead tree, and the first thing I saw was Candy. He wasn't smiling. He asked me if I wanted coffee. Sure, thanks.
Slept down here? She threw you out?
Whatever you say, pal. He laughed at me.
You don't look so tough this morning.
He brought me my coffee. I drank it. I had more, smoked a cigarette, and then I was okay. I mean, I was still alive. When Candy came to take the empty cup, I asked him, How much are you getting for your silence? I bet less than 200. He smiled a bad smile. He still didn't like me.
Maybe you give me 200 so I don't say what I saw last night.
You didn't see anything. There was nothing to see. Now get out of here, Candy, because I'm waking up. I went to the living room. She was there, and she was surprised to see me.
I didn't know you were here, Mr. Marlowe.
She was hard to believe. I walked over closer to her. She was wearing something strange on a chain around her neck. It was some kind of army badge. I asked her about it.
I had a peculiar dream last night, she said. Someone I used to know came to see me. That's why I'm wearing this.
She touched the badge gently.
He gave it to me.
I had a peculiar dream, too, I said, looking right at her. But now I'm awake, and I don't dream when I'm awake. What I'm saying is, I don't think I'll come here again. There's something wrong here. Very wrong.
Oh, Roger will be fine in a day or two. You'll see.
No, he won't, I said. If you want to help him, you'll get him the right kind of doctor, and quick. But, I added, not caring that it was nasty, I don't think you really want to help him. I left her there in her living room, her husband upstairs, sleeping a drugged sleep, her pretty necklace around her pretty neck, and her pretty violet eyes full of anger at what I had said. I drove home down a beautiful road and saw nothing beautiful. Chapter 8. The Smell of Gunsmoke. At home, I had a long shower, shaved, changed into fresh clothes, and began to feel clean again. I read a story in a magazine that was good but not great. At midday, my telephone rang. It was the doctor's wife. She said she had to see me. I told her I'd meet her at my office. I stopped for a sandwich on the way, so she was already there when I came in. I never remember to lock up.
You don't even have a secretary, she said.
No, I don't. Why? Are you looking for a job?
You couldn't pay me enough,
she said. You're wrong. I've got money. I've got a $5,000 bill. I took it out of my safe, and she looked at it carefully.
You got this from Terry Lennox. He used to carry it around. A good luck piece or something. You drove him to Tijuana. You also don't think he killed my sister. Did he give you a list of her special friends? Is that it? Is that why you've been at the Wades, holding Roger's hand? Because you think maybe Roger killed Sylvia when he was, I don't know, drunk and crazy?
I met the Wades because a New York publisher wants a book finished, Mrs. Loring. Terry gave me no list, no names. And yes, I was supposed to help Wade, but I can't. That was all the explanation she deserved. But there was a question I wanted answered, too. I saw you at Victor's the other night. You were having a rather unusual drink, I noticed. Could it be that you don't think Terry killed your sister?
What I think doesn't matter, she said.
She meant it, too.
I didn't come here to talk about Terry Lennox in any case. I came to invite you to my house.
Why?
Someone would like to talk with you.
I had a strong feeling who that someone would be. The old man? She frowned. It was a pretty frown.
I don't call him that, Mr. Marlowe. Will you come?
I said yes. Even a cat can look at a king. We went in her car. The driver was a black man in his middle 50s who even opened our doors when we stopped in front of her house, which was just about the ugliest piece of architecture I had ever seen. It looked like a sandcastle that a little boy builds when he's mad at his parents. Mrs. Loring saw my expression and smiled.
Horrible, isn't it? My father gave it to me as a wedding present. My husband loves it.
We went in. Someone opened the door for us and then vanished. From the hall we entered a room that was at least 70 feet long. At the far end, a man was sitting, waiting. He gave us both the same cold stare. Mrs. Loring made the introductions and apologized, just in case we were late. "Tell them to bring the tea," he said. "Sit down, Mr. Marlowe." I sat down, and we looked at each other without talking at all until the tea came. "2 cups," Harlan Potter commanded as his daughter poured. "You can have your tea in another room, Linda." She smiled weakly and left. I took out a cigarette. "Don't smoke, please. It bothers my health." I had to believe him, although he certainly didn't look sick. He was a long way over 6 feet, and nearly as wide as he was tall. His hair was not yet gray. His voice seemed to come from the next room. So, this is what $100 million looks like, I thought. He didn't even touch his tea. He just talked. He said he knew who I was, what I was, and what I had done for Terry. He went on to say that my investigation was interfering in his private life. I told him I wasn't investigating anything at the moment. He disagreed. "Perhaps you think Roger Wade is involved in my daughter's death. Forget that idea. Forget you even know Roger Wade. I don't read his books myself," he said, "but I have been told that they are quite childish as whatever strange ideas you may have." I explained again how I had come to meet Wade. I told him about Menendez, too, but he said the name meant nothing to him. I asked him what I could do to make him happier. "All I want is peace and quiet, Mr. Marlowe. I pay good money for it, and I expect it. We live in a dirty world where everyone wants to hear terrible stories about the rich and the powerful. I repeat, I pay money to keep my life private. How much do you want, Marlowe?" "Nothing. I don't want your money. If I get rich, I might become like you." He laughed. Then he stood up, and I saw just how much over 6 feet he was. He was very big. When he shook my hand, my fingers cried. "Just don't be a hero, young man. It's not a very clever role for a clever man." Mrs. Loring's driver took me home, but wouldn't accept the $1 I tried to give him. So I tried to give him a book of poetry, but he said he already had that book. Life left me alone again for another week, and then I got 2 telephone calls in one morning, and I was back into what Harlan Potter had clearly told me to stay away from. The first caller was Roger Wade. He wasn't crying for help this time. He was inviting me to lunch. I accepted. The second call was from that friend of George Peters. He was back in town. He said he didn't know if it would help now, but he was sure he had seen Terry Lennox in New York a few years back, and that his name then had been Paul Marston. He added that Marston had been wearing a British Army badge. With this new information, I decided to talk to someone who was supposed to know what was going on. I telephoned Green at Homicide. He wasn't pleased to hear from me. "War record? You don't listen, do you, Marlowe? The investigation is over. But if you can't sleep nights worrying about it, I'll tell you. Lennox had no war record." I told him Mendy's story. "Mendy's a gangster. He is also a liar, and you're a fool to believe him." He didn't give me a chance to tell him what I thought he was. He just hung up. I drove to Wade's house at noon. It was too hot to be a nice day. Even the wind was hot. The house was cool, though. Wade took me into his study. A pile of papers next to the typewriter impressed me. "The book?" I asked.
"Yes, and it's rotten. I'm not a writer anymore. I'm someone who used to write. Want a drink?"
"A soda, please."
"Very clever. I think I'll have one, too."
He rang a bell, and Candy came.
2 sodas, and we'll have lunch in an hour," he told the Mexican.
"It's Thursday, boss. My day off, remember?"
"Then just make us some sandwiches."
"I'm not the cook, boss." Wade gave him a narrow look.
"I'm having lunch with my friend. The cook is off today."
"You think he's your friend," Candy said, glancing at me. "Maybe you should ask your wife."
"Watch your mouth, little man,"
Wade warned, suddenly angry.
"Remember who pays you."
Candy smiled.
"Okay, boss. I'll get lunch."
He left for the kitchen. "But what are you paying him for?" I asked Wade.
"You're going to start that again?"
"And the good man that died for you?"
Let me tell you.
Terry Lennox. Candy knows you were seeing Sylvia, so you pay him. Wade asked me.
"You think I killed her?"
"I'm not looking for a killer. What's driving you insane is that you don't know. You were drunk, and you don't remember. That's how it was." He was going to say something, but Candy came in carrying the sandwiches and 2 bottles of beer. Wade looked at the beer and shook his head.
"Get me a real drink, Candy."
The Mexican said there was only beer, and that he was leaving now. He reminded Wade again that it was his day off.
"So go. I'll get the stuff myself."
They left the room together, and then Wade returned a minute later with a bottle of whiskey and a glass. He filled it, drank, then filled it again. "Where's your wife?" I asked him as he put the bottle and the glass down on his desk.
"Why? Are you in love?"
The whiskey was already at work. "I ask because I don't want to leave you alone, now that you're going to fall to pieces again. I wouldn't want you to shoot the ceiling again." He looked at me with deep worry in his eyes.
"I really did that, didn't I? You know, I can't remember."
"That's your whole trouble," I told him. "Is the gun still in the desk?" I had put it there that night. Today, I didn't want him in the same room with it.
"I don't know where it is, but it's not in the desk," he said. "Look for yourself."
I did, and it wasn't there. Eileen must have hidden it from him.
"Now that you've had your look around," he said,
The whiskey in charge once more,
"why don't you leave me alone? I'm tired of your face."
I took my sandwich to a table and some chairs outside. It was a little hotter here, but it was nicer than being with Wade. I watched a boat zip up and down the lake. The people in the boat were laughing. They were talking to each other, but I couldn't hear anything except the loud roar of the boat's engine. After I finished my sandwich, I went back and put my head in at the door of the study.
"Go away,"
Wade said, and shook the half-empty whiskey bottle at me. I went back outside to wait for someone to come home and keep an eye on the fool. The boat continued to roar along the shore of the lake. I walked down to get a closer look. The man behind the wheel waved at me. Maybe he didn't know he was wrecking a nice quiet afternoon, and maybe he knew and didn't care. I walked back to the house. The boat moved down the lake and took its awful noise with it. At the top of the garden steps, I heard the doorbell ringing. I went in and opened the door for Eileen Wade.
"Oh, Mr. Marlowe, I thought it was Candy or Roger. I forgot my key."
It's Candy's day off. There must have been something in my voice.
"Is anything wrong?"
she asked. "Well, a little drinking is being done. He's in his study, probably asleep by now, and I must get going."
"Oh, don't go. Stay and have some tea."
I don't know why I said yes. I didn't want any tea. She took off her jacket.
"I'll just look in and see if Roger is all right."
I watched her cross to the study door and open it. She looked in for a moment and closed the door and came back.
Yes, he's asleep. I have to go upstairs, but I'll be right back down.
She went up, and I heard her door close. I went to the study. If he was sleeping, he wouldn't need whatever was left in the bottle. I opened the door. There was perfect silence and a strong smell of gun smoke in the room. Before I was halfway to where he lay on the sofa, I knew he was dead. Chapter 9. The Kiss of Death. Beside him on the sofa was the gun. It was blood-stained. The side of his head was more than blood-stained. I touched his wrist. It was warm, but he was quite dead. I looked around for a note, but there wasn't one. They don't always leave notes. I wondered why I hadn't heard the shot, and then I remembered the boat. He must have waited until the boat was passing and then fired the bullet. Why would he wait for the boat? I didn't like that, but nobody cared what I liked. I went out and closed the door. She was in the kitchen making our tea. I didn't say anything, except that I didn't take sugar or milk. She said she'd learned to drink tea in London during the war, when she met that man. But she stopped the story there and changed the subject. She started talking about her husband. Something would have to be done to help him. I said it was too late. She didn't understand that remark at first. Then she glanced towards the study.
Is there something wrong in there?
I nodded. She ran out of the kitchen, and by the time I reached her, she was kneeling by the sofa. I left her there with him and called the police. A cop was at the house within 5 minutes. When I took him to the study, she was still kneeling by the body. "I'm sorry," he said, "but you really shouldn't touch anything."
"It's my husband," she said angrily. "He's been shot."
She looked right at me.
"I think he did it,"
she said, pointing. It wasn't a nice thing to say, but I got lucky. The police detective who showed up 10 minutes later was my friend Bernie Olds. He was my friend, but that didn't mean he didn't have to think about it first. "You were here with him alone, right? She says you knew where the gun was, although it looks more like suicide right now. And you're maybe too clever to be the only person around when you kill someone. Maybe. But I think you would have done it differently." "Thanks, Bernie. You're right, though. I would have." "So it looks good for suicide. Except that Wade was rich, his beautiful wife is upstairs crying for him, and I can't see why he'd want to kill himself. If you know anything, you'd better be ready to talk. I'll see you later. Maybe sooner." As it turned out, I had time to go home, change, have a nice dinner out, and come home again before Olds called. The message was simple. Come to the sheriff's office, and don't bother stopping to buy flowers. The Wade house was in Idle Valley, outside the city border. Idle Valley had its own sheriff, and he was investigating Wade's death. In theory, the sheriff ran his own office, but the sheriff was as stupid as he was honest, and he was very honest. He looked great in photographs, and he was almost as big as the horse he rode in the annual Idle Valley Festival, but the horse was cleverer. The sheriff knew it, and he let his captain, a man named Hernandez, do the real police work. It was Hernandez and Olds who threw the questions at me. How did I first meet Wade? When? What work did I do for him? I told them the truth, but I didn't tell everything. Then we reached the part that most interested Hernandez.
"The night that Wade fired a gun in his bedroom, you went into Eileen Wade's room, and you were in there together for some time with the door shut. How long would you say you spent in there?"
"About 3 minutes." Hernandez shook his head.
"I suggest you were in there for a few hours," he said coldly.
I looked at Olds, but Bernie wouldn't look at me. 3 minutes, I repeated.
"Get that servant in here,"
Hernandez said. Oles went out and came back with Candy. I knew what was coming. Candy told his story in a low, nasty voice. He said he'd seen me go into the bedroom, and that he had come up the stairs and listened at the door and heard whispers. He said I didn't come out for a long time. When he had finished, he gave me a hard look, and I could see hate in his eyes. The captain said, "Take him out." "Just a minute," I said. "I'd like to ask him a question." Hernandez didn't like that, but he let me. "Where were you when you saw me go into her bedroom?"
"I was cleaning up the glasses at the bar."
"And you saw me go into her bedroom and close the door?" Candy said yes. "You're lying. You can't see that door from the bar. I'm 4 inches taller than you, and when I stood at the bar at the party, I couldn't see more than the top edge of that door." Candy did not deny this. He said nothing at all. Hernandez asked,
"What about how long you were in the room?"
I said that was my word against Candy's, and I reminded them that Candy had just lied. He could believe either of us, I told him. Hernandez sent Candy out. Then he told me I could go home, but that I'd have to come back the next day to sign the statement I'd made. He even shook my hand when I left. I guessed that meant he believed me. A few days later, they closed that investigation, too. It was suicide, they said. Oles came over that afternoon. It was over, but that didn't mean he had to like the answer.
"Wade was a writer, Marlowe. That's what bothers me. He wrote books. He wrote notes to himself. He wrote all the time. And then he kills himself and he doesn't even write a goodbye. It seems wrong."
I pointed out that Wade had been drunk. That didn't satisfy Bernie.
"There's the boat, too. Why would you care if anyone heard the last shot you'd ever fire? Or the wife who forgets her keys and has to ring the bell to get in when she could have walked around to the back of the house and come in from the garden? I've been a policeman too long, and it just doesn't smell right. I would swear she did it, except there's no motive. She could have divorced him and still made a fortune."
He talked for an hour about the Wades, and for an hour I talked about them too. But all my talk couldn't cover up the fact that I wasn't telling him everything. He left angry at everybody, including me. I talked to someone else the next day who wasn't any happier about Wade's death than Bernie was, but for different reasons. Howard Spencer called from New York to say he'd been informed of the suicide and that he'd heard I was somehow involved. I found myself explaining everything again. I was getting tired of apologizing for what Wade had chosen to do. In fact, the more I thought about him, the less I liked this dead man. Spencer said he was going to fly in one day soon. We said we'd talk then, although I had nothing more to say. Roger Wade was dead, and so was Terry Lennox. But there was a difference. I still cared about Terry. I called Mendy to get some facts straight. "Mendy, this is Marlowe."
"Hello, Cheapy. How are you?"
"Haven't you heard? Another friend of mine killed himself. They're going to call me the kiss of death from now on. I also have a question about Paul Marston."
"Never heard of him,"
Mendy said immediately. "No games, Mendy. That was the name Lennox used in New York, and probably before there."
"So?"
"There are no Army records under either name. That story of yours was all a song." Mendy didn't like being called a liar.
"I never said where it happened. Take my advice and forget the whole thing. You were told. Now stay told."
"Some types scare me, Mendy, but you're not one of them. Ever been to England?" He ignored my question. Instead, he said,
"Big Willie Magoon wasn't scared either. Seen the newspapers? Maybe he's still not scared, but I doubt it. He's in the hospital, and he's going to be there a long time."
"I don't want to talk about Magoon. I want to talk about England, and you, and Randy Starr, and Paul Marston. There was a short silence on his end of the line. Then he made up his mind.
Okay, Chiefy. I tell you the whole story, and then your curiosity dies, right? Otherwise, you do. We were with the British. It happened in Norway in November 1942. Now you know it all. Now you can rest your tired brain.
He hung up. I went out and bought a newspaper and read about poor Magoon. Of course, Mendy had promised me worse because Magoon was a policeman. A dirty cop, but still one of the boys, and gangsters don't like to kill policemen. They don't care about private detectives, though. Some days, it seems no one does. Except perhaps another private detective. I called George Peters and asked him to help. He said he would. I know a few good people in England. You'll get what you want. He didn't disappoint me. When Howard Spencer called the next Friday, I had it all. He was staying at the Ritz Beverly Hotel, and he suggested we meet in the bar. But I wanted to talk in private, so I went to his room instead. He had it nice. The room was big, and the view was good. He ordered our drinks over the telephone.
Now, Mr. Marlowe, what can you tell me before I see Mrs. Wade?
Nothing. He looked at me with surprise.
I mean concerning Roger Wade's death. I understand you were there.
I nodded. I'd like to come with you to see Mrs. Wade, I said. Spencer shook his head.
I don't think she wishes to see you. She blames you in part for what happened, I think.
She told the police I killed him. I know she doesn't want to see me. That's why I want to go with you. I want a witness to what I have to say to her, too.
What are you going to say?
You hear it in front of her, or not at all, I said.
Then not at all. Eileen has suffered enough. I won't take you there to bother her more.
That made sense. He wanted the book that Wade had been working on. He wanted to save Eileen Wade from more pain. I said that these were fine aims, but I didn't share them. All I wanted was a clearer picture. I told him the details that had bothered Oles.
My God, he said, the police don't think Eileen did it, do they?
I didn't tell him the investigation was closed. I just gave him a tired smile and let him do his own thinking.
You want to talk to her, and you want a witness. I hope to God you're crazy, but I'll do it, he said finally.
Chapter 10. A big noise about small things. The drive to Idle Valley was long and hot, as always. I expected the heat, but Spencer was shocked.
This heat, this dust, I thought California was supposed to have beautiful weather.
I told him it would be cooler by the lake.
It was a mistake for Roger to move here, you know. Wrong environment entirely. Too many parties, this awful heat. No wonder he didn't feel like writing. A writer needs things to think about, and not just what he's going to wear to the next good time.
I didn't have a chance to disagree with him because we'd reached the house. Spencer was out of the car as soon as I had parked, and he rang the bell as soon as he got to the door. Candy, wearing his white jacket and his usual frown, let the publisher in, and then closed the door as I approached. I rang, and he put his head out.
Get lost, or do you want trouble?
I pushed right past him. He reached for me, but Eileen Wade was standing there, and he stopped.
Hello, Howard,
she said warmly to Spencer.
I'm so sorry you missed lunch, and I didn't know you were bringing Mr. Marlowe.
Spencer said simply,
He wants to talk to you.
She was surprised.
Does he? I can't imagine why. But do come in and sit down.
Spencer went at once to the study for the pages Wade had written. I sat in an uncomfortable silence with Eileen Wade until I noticed that she was wearing that badge again. She had just handed it to me when Spencer returned with his pile of papers.
It's the badge of an English army group, the Artists' Rifles, they were called. The man who gave it to me was lost right afterwards, in Andalsnes, in Norway, in 1940.
And you were in love with him, I said. She admitted it proudly. And he had my initials.
His name was quite different,
she said coldly.
And he is dead. Dead.
I handed the badge to Spencer. He took it without showing interest. I've seen it before, he said. Just help me. The picture on it is a long knife that points down, and there's a pair of wings, too. The writing on it says, "Who dares wins." Spencer was unimpressed. I fail to see what you are trying to say. This badge, she says she was given in London in 1940, didn't exist then. It was created years later, and the Artists' Rifles never fought in Andalsnes. Spencer put the badge down gently on the table and pushed it towards Eileen. He said nothing.
I know that,
Eileen said. There must be some mistake, Spencer offered. I gave him a hard stare. That's one way of putting it, I said.
Another way is to say I'm a liar,
Eileen said angrily.
That I never met a man named Paul Marston, that he never existed, that I bought this badge in a shop somewhere. Would that explanation satisfy you, Mr. Marlowe?
I said the shop would, but not the first part. There had been a Paul Marston once. She had certainly met him. In fact, she had done more than that. I took a folded paper from my pocket.
She's forgotten a few dates, years, that's all, Spencer said. I don't see why you're being so tough with her.
I smiled, but not from joy. She's forgotten a lot more than that. I waved the paper from my pocket. In August 1942, Eileen Victoria Sampsell and Paul Edward Marston were married. In a sense, Mrs. Wade is right. Marston never existed, because that was just a name he used. In the Army, you have to have permission to get married. In the Army, Marston had another name. Spencer was very quiet now. He stared, but not at both of us. He stared at her. She had to say something.
Howard, he's dead. It doesn't matter. And Roger knew, and he didn't care.
Spencer did the right thing as he saw it. He believed her.
Let's forget it. Marlowe made a big show out of a badge and the marriage, that's all.
She had him on her side now. She said,
Mr. Marlowe makes a big noise about small things, but when it comes to saving a man's life...
And you never saw Paul Marston again, I said.
How could I, when he was dead?
He was not reported dead. He might have been taken prisoner.
There was an order not to take prisoners,
she said in a cold, sad voice. That's enough, Marlowe, Spencer interrupted. I think it's time we left. He began packing up the papers into his leather case. If that's what you want, Mr. Spencer. But do you think I came here to tell Mrs. Wade she was wearing the wrong badge? I began with Marston long before I met Mrs. Wade. When I started, my Paul Marston was still alive.
Marston is not such an unusual name, Spencer said. There must be many Paul Marstons.
Maybe. But how many Paul Marstons would you say had big scars on their faces and snow-white hair? How many that saved the lives of 2 gangsters? Marston wasn't just Marston, Spencer. He was also Terry Lennox. I didn't expect anyone to jump up and scream, and nobody did. There is, however, a kind of silence that is almost as loud as a shout, and I had it all around me now. I sat in it for a full minute, and then I turned to Eileen. She sat leaning forward. Her face was pale. When she spoke, her voice was as empty as the voice on the telephone that tells you the time, minute after minute, without changing.
I saw him once, Howard. We didn't speak. He was terribly changed. When I saw him, he was with that awful woman, and I was married to Roger. We were lost to each other. Even if I hadn't been married, I couldn't have forgiven him for marrying her, that horrible woman. I didn't care that Roger went around with her. He was just my husband. Paul was much more than that to me, or he was nothing. In the end, he was nothing.
She wasn't talking to me, but I said, I wouldn't say he was nothing.
Less than nothing. He knew what kind of woman she was, and still he married her. Then he couldn't stand it, and he killed her and ran away and killed himself. Nothing.
He didn't kill her, I said, and you know it. She looked at me in surprise. Spencer made a funny sound in his throat. Roger killed her, I continued, and you also know that.
Did he tell you?
She asked quietly. He didn't have to. He would have told me sooner or later. It was driving him crazy. She shook her head.
No, Mr. Marlowe. What was driving him crazy was that he didn't know. He was so drunk when he did it that he couldn't remember afterwards. He tried to remember because he knew something was wrong. Perhaps that memory came back to him at the very end.
Spencer couldn't believe a man could kill and forget it. Eileen smiled a very sad smile.
I was there, Howard. I saw him do it.
She's going to tell us, I thought. She can't stop herself now. And she talked, and we listened. She had followed Roger to Sylvia's guest house. An argument started between Roger and Sylvia. Eileen watched from the shadows. Roger came outside. Sylvia ran after him. She tried to hit him with a small stone vase she was holding. He took it from her, and he hit her. Then he hit her again, and she fell down, and he kept hitting her. Before Eileen ran, she saw him pick Sylvia's body up and carry it back inside.
When Roger came home that night, I was terrified. He was covered in blood and still blind drunk. I took his clothes off him as if he were a child and put them in an old suitcase. He went right to sleep, and I drove to Chatsworth Beach on the other side of the lake and threw the suitcase in. When Roger woke up, he remembered nothing. He never said a word about the clothes. I guess he never even noticed they were missing.
Spencer was working on something while he listened, and now he had it ready. Wait a minute. You knew Roger had killed Sylvia, and yet you had me hire Marlowe, or try to hire him, to find out the terrible secret that was bothering your husband. That doesn't make sense. Unless... He gave her a strange look, as if seeing her for the first time. Unless the idea was that Marlowe would find the truth, and maybe tell Wade that the whole world would have to know. So Roger would take that gun and do just what he did anyway. She looked at Spencer with tears in her eyes.
That's horrible, Howard. You know I could never...
I don't know, Spencer said coolly. But you know. Did you?
Did I what?
She asked. Shoot Roger, he said calmly.
You're horrible. He was my husband. I forgot my key. I came in. He was already dead.
Spencer shook his head. I've stayed here a dozen times, Eileen, and I've never known the front door to be locked. She stood up.
Howard, take the book and go. Call the police if you think I killed Roger, but don't ever come back here.
I wanted one last answer. Wait a minute, Mrs. Wade. Let's finish the job. We're all trying to do the right thing. That old suitcase you threw in the lake at Chatsworth Beach, was it heavy?
Yes, it was.
So how did you get it over that high fence? They closed the gate there after dark. She thought about it.
The fence. I had a hard time with the fence, but I got it over.
There isn't any fence, I said.
Isn't any fence?
She repeated. And Sylvia Lennox was killed inside the guest house, on the bed. And there are other details you missed. She said nothing. She just walked away. We watched her go up the stairs. We heard her bedroom door close.
What was that about the fence? Spencer asked.
He looked like a man who'd just fought a battle. He was tired in that way. A bad joke. I've never been near Chatsworth Beach. It might have a fence, and it might not.
I see, he said unhappily. But she didn't know either.
Of course not, which means she killed them both. Then something moved behind me, and Candy was standing there. He was playing with his knife again, but this time he wasn't thinking about giving me the blade.
I'm sorry, senor, he said to me. I was wrong about you. She killed the boss.
He looked at his knife again. No, I said. I stood up and held out my hand. Give me the knife, Candy. To the cops, you're just a Mexican servant. They'd arrest you for it and love it. They've made a mess of this from start to finish, and they'd use you to make people forget that. You'd spend the rest of your life in jail. He put the knife in my hand.
Only for you I do this.
I put the knife in my pocket. Candy asked what would happen now. I said we'd do nothing, but Spencer insisted we had to do something. He mentioned calling the police. Tomorrow. Or let them catch it themselves. We don't have enough proof. The truth is not legal proof. If it was, we wouldn't have lawyers. In the end, Spencer said he'd do whatever I thought was best. He was okay. He was doing fine. But this wasn't something he knew about. It wasn't books. We left. As I walked out, I handed Candy back his knife. Don't do a thing. Nobody trusts me, but I trust you, Candy.
Thank you, senor. I trust you, too.
I returned Spencer to his hotel and went home. I watched the clock, and the hours went slowly. I fell asleep very late, and the telephone rang in the middle of my first dream. Yes?
This is Candy, senor. The lady is dead.
It's a hard word, dead, and when he said it, he made it sound like stone.
She took some pills, I think.
Have you called the police?
Not yet, he said.
Call them. Was there a note?
Yes, a letter.
Give it to them when they come. And tell them everything. And this time, only the truth, right?
Yes, senor. I'll call them right now.
Chapter 11. A Little Trap. I hung up and took a shower and shaved. I dressed quickly because I knew I didn't have much time. I was tying my shoes when my time ran out. "Hello, Marlowe," Bernie Holes said when I picked up the telephone. "Come down here and suffer." It was different this time. It was another suicide, but this was the real thing. They were not happy with me, but there was nothing they could threaten me with. Hernandez listened to my story, and this time he didn't make any suggestions as to what else I might want to say. There was Eileen Wade's full confession, too, but the DA didn't want it because he had already believed another confession to the Lennox murder. The sheriff's office, on the other hand, liked the confession. They liked it because they didn't like the DA. Dr. Loring showed up because she had been his patient, and she had killed herself with his medicine. We were not glad to see each other. After the doctor left, I was told I could go too. Olds took me out through another room. He pointed out a small pile of papers on a desk. Copies of the confession. It'd be terrible if someone took one of them. The DA doesn't want this to become public. Then he went out into the hall to get some air, leaving me alone. He came back a minute later. When we were out in the sunlight, I asked him, "You don't like the DA, do you, Bernie?" Olds smiled. "I like everybody. I even like you."
Not everyone does, though, and in a few days, fewer people will like you, I think. I hope you still carry a gun.
"I do," I said, "but it doesn't always help. The newspapers said that Willie Magoon was carrying 2 of them the night they put him in hospital."
That's right, Olds said. It would be a good idea to remember that.
When I got home, I called Morgan, the reporter who'd given me the ride home from the police station that other time. We had a long conversation. He tried to persuade me not to do it, but he couldn't, and he was still a reporter, and he wanted the story. He did warn me, though.
"When we print this confession, you're going to be the least popular person in town. The DA will know sooner or later where it came from. Potter will be so angry he might forget he's a gentleman. And Mendy will be angry, too, because he told you to leave it alone. And Mendy doesn't even pretend to be a gentleman."
It was all true, and his advice was good advice. "Print it, Morgan," I said, and I read the whole letter to him from the copy I'd taken from the sheriff's office. It came out the next day, on the front page. The DA called it lies, but the newspaper sold very well. Bernie Olds came over, and we had another bad time together. He wondered why I hadn't called him with what I'd had against Eileen Wade. He said maybe I wanted her dead. I said I had just wanted her to take a long look at what she had done to 2 good men.
You think you're a clever monkey, don't you, Marlowe?
What do you want me to say?
Nothing. It's too late. The hard boys will come for you, and it's very quiet here. Dark and quiet.
Why are you even here, Bernie? We were friends once, but you can't really be friends with a cop, can you? Not a tough old one like you. He finished his beer and left. The day ended with some good songs on the radio. The next day, the DA made a full statement attacking Morgan's newspaper, and he said a lot of pretty things about poor Mrs. Wade, and still the newspaper held to its position. I went to my office and did nothing special, nothing that I can remember, until the workday was over. I ate at a restaurant on the way home. I drove up Locust Avenue, and it was as empty as usual. I parked and went up all my steps. I would have unlocked the door, but it was already a few inches open.
"Come on in, cheapie,"
a familiar voice said.
"Welcome home."
If I had taken my gun out right then, I could have shot him. But I stood still a moment too long, and someone slipped out of the bushes and pushed me through my own doorway. Mendy was wearing another expensive suit and the same nasty smile. I didn't see him at first, though, because I was looking at the other man sitting in the corner of my living room. He had a gun lying across his knees, and he was so brown from the sun that there in the half-dark I couldn't see his face at all. Mendy wanted my attention. The man that had pushed me reminded me of that in a soft place on my arm. The pain disappeared very quickly, but with it went the muscle in my arm. I looked at him. He was a big Mexican. He was tough. There is nothing tougher than a tough Mexican, just as there is nothing gentler than a gentle Mexican, or more honest than an honest Mexican, or above all, nothing sadder than a sad Mexican. This guy was one of the hard ones. They don't come any harder anywhere. Mendy stood in front of me. I was very interested in the gun in his right hand, and it looked interested in me.
You didn't listen, cheapie.
He hit me with the gun. It hurt. You shouldn't have to do this yourself, I said, surprised that my mouth still worked. You should have some boys do it for you, like you did to Willie Magoon. He smiled again.
No, Magoon was business. He tried to push me. He bought that big car of his with my money, and then he tried to push me. You, Marlowe, are personal. You embarrassed me professionally. I can't let you do that.
I shook my head. There's more to it than that. What happened? Your friend Lennox was innocent, but you never moved a finger to prove it. And then I came and did the work you should have done. He saved your life, and you didn't do anything. Because you're no friend, and you're not big. You're just a loud boy who can't think of anyone but himself. His face froze, and he lifted the gun to hit me again. I didn't think. I didn't have a plan. I was just tired of being hit. I kicked him full in the stomach. As he went down, I hit him again with my knee. Then I waited to be shot. And nothing happened. I looked around. The hard one was standing by the door, watching me. He didn't even bother to look at Mendy, who was now lying on the floor, gasping. At last, the man in the chair moved. He stood up, put his gun away, and laughed.
Don't kill him, Marlowe. We need him alive.
That was when Bernie Olds walked in, whistling. Hello, Marlowe. You've cut your face. He gestured at Mendy, who was still on the floor. Take this soft baby out of here, he ordered the laughing man. He's not soft, I said. He's hurt. Anybody can be hurt. Was Willie Magoon soft? No, Olds admitted. And now we've got the words from Mendy's own mouth about Magoon, because gangsters can't touch policemen in this town. It's against all the rules. We will remind Mendy of that. It worked well, this little trap. A few cuts on your face, but I'd say you deserve them. They led Mendy away and left me alone in my dark, quiet house. I thought about it for a few minutes, and then I made a telephone call.
Marlowe? I know that name. Right, a friend of Terry's. How can I help you?
He had a businessman's calm voice. You can tell me about Mexico, Mr. Starr. I just had a visit from Mendy, and I don't think he was mad at me for something in the newspaper. It was Mexico. Something is wrong here. The confession Lennox wrote was false. How many other lies are there? He wrote me a letter which was mailed by someone. Who? Randy Starr said,
I have no idea, Mr. Marlowe.
I think you should find out, Mr. Starr. If you don't, someone else will.
You, Marlowe?
He didn't sound like the calm businessman now. Not me. A man so big you could get hurt if he sneezed. So find out, Mr. Starr. The next day I went to see the lawyer who had been to Mexico to watch them bury Lennox. He was surprised to see me, but was not unfriendly.
You're a stubborn one, aren't you, Marlowe? Still digging?
Yes, Mr. Endicott, still digging. I wonder if you could give me a few minutes.
Why not?
He said. Can I assume that you were representing Harlan Potter when you came to see me in jail? Endicott nodded. I suppose Potter is very unhappy with me these days, I continued. But to my surprise, the lawyer said he wasn't.
Mr. Potter blames his son-in-law, Dr. Loring. He feels that if that Wade woman hadn't been using those drugs that the doctor gave her, none of this would have happened.
He's wrong. You saw Terry's body in Otataclan, didn't you?
I did indeed.
He didn't look the same, did he?
You mean the color? No, he was darker, much darker. His hair was black. But the scar was still there, and we took his fingerprints. There's no question it was him.
I asked him the next question twice before he understood it.
A mailbox? No, I don't remember seeing a mailbox.
I showed him Terry's letter. He read it slowly.
I wonder why he did it,
he said when he had finished reading. Why he sent the letter?
No, of course not. Why he confessed and killed himself. As for the mailbox, perhaps he saw something that looked like one. Otataclan isn't a modern town.
I know, I said. I looked it up. A population of 1,000, no good roads, a small local airport, one hotel. Not a place you'd find a mailbox. Endicott was trying to understand.
What do you think it would mean if there wasn't a mailbox?
I said I didn't know. What I didn't say was that I was sure I would find out one day.